is who you are. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here and you're healing every heart. I worship you, yeah, I worship you. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. And that is who you are. Yeah, that is who you are. Yeah. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Jesus, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. I know you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. And that is who you are. That is who you are. Jesus, that is who you are.
Good morning. Welcome to Real Life Online. We're so glad you're taking the time to hang out with us today, whether it's just you or you're with your Real Life at Home group. Thank you for tuning in. You can catch us every Sunday on YouTube, on our website, on Facebook. And don't forget that Billy, our Brewster campus pastor, is always hanging out on Zoom afterwards if you want to hang out and jump in there and discuss with him. Hey, I got one cool announcement for you tonight at 6 o'clock. On the youth group's YouTube page, The Rendezvous, we are hosting our next Youth Night Live. Anybody is free to tune in, but especially we want to see our 6th through 12th grade friends. You know, we're going to have some ridiculous videos, some games, some trivia. You can win prizes that we will send out to you. It's like the ultimate social distance fun. And then also tonight on Youth Night Live, we are going to announce where our next youth missions trip is. We've done all the homework and we've done all the planning, and we know where we are headed this summer, and we are going to reveal that tonight. If you know or you have a teenager that you want on that trip, regardless of where it is, because you know what, it's just going to be a great experience. We will have an information meeting on Monday the 18th at 7 p.m. That'll be a Zoom meeting, and there'll be links on all kinds of stuff as we get closer to that date. Other than that, we'll see all of our 6th through 12th grade friends tonight on our YouTube page. Before we jump into things, let's say a quick prayer. Father, we thank you for today, and Lord, I thank you for the snow. I thank you for kind of the freshness that it brings. Lord, I ask that during this week, during this kind of new week in the new year, that you would inspire us. If we have new goals, new aspirations, that you would push us towards that you would give us the courage to do that, and not let this last year hinder us from finding the kind of courage and the passion to make that happen. We ask for that in the powerful name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Enjoy the service.
Now to Australia, where they're facing those massive fires.
The articles of impeachment against President Trump go to the full House with a vote expected this week.
Boeing 737 passenger plane has crashed in Iran.
Five-time NBA champion, former league MVP Kobe Bryant died Earlier this afternoon,
The Iowa caucus is in chaos this morning.
Britain is no longer part of the European Union.
Breaking news from Lebanon. Beirut has been hit by a massive explosion.
The scene in Minneapolis last night, protests over the death of George Floyd, the black man who died in the custody of a white police officer.
Hurricane Laura slamming ashore as a monster Category 4.
Turkey has been struck by a powerful earthquake.
This is the deadliest outbreak of Ebola on record.
Coronavirus cases skyrocketing.
The Olympic Games is Tuesday, which will be postponed for a year.
Walmart is running out of toilet paper and cleaning supplies.
Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died.
Now to the ongoing crisis in Puerto Rico, which just can't seem to catch a break.
Would you shut up, man?
There's nothing smart about you, Joe.
well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown.
Congressman John Lewis, an icon of the nation's civil rights movement, has died.
Murder hornets arriving in the United States for the first time, and we're just ready for this Jumanji game to be over with.
Yeah, remember when we were excited about 2020?
Well, Happy New Year. Thanks for tuning in. Look at you. We got through what most of us are calling the worst year ever. We're through with 2020 and we got a new year. Started a brand new series called Hindsight's 2020. Now that we're in 2021, what can we learn from the year that we went through? I think it's good to stop and celebrate, though. That in the words of Barry Manilow, looks like we made it. In the words of Macklemore, the ceiling couldn't hold you. The 2020 ceiling couldn't hold you. Look at you. You made it all the way to 2021. And for you Lizzo's fans, how you feeling? Feeling good as can be under the circumstances. That's exactly right. Look at, we made it. I just heard on the radio that South Korea wanted to encourage all their citizens, I think it was just in the city of Seoul. And so they did a month-long campaign called You're Doing Great. And they picked 500 families randomly and delivered a bouquet of flowers to them to say, good job, way to go. That's the best way to approach this. We've been through a difficult thing, but look, we're still standing. Here we, in the words of Elton John, we're still standing. There's a ton of songs. Here we are, still standing. I ran into this meme on the internet a week ago or so. Kind of represents the conclusion of 2020. Parents put their elves on the shelf inside the oven because, like it says, it's a lot of toast during here. So they go to bed, the elves on the shelf are in the oven. They get up the next morning and make breakfast. They forget about the elves on the shelf, and that's what happened. Good news is they all survived, and they had the special elf on the shelf vaccine before they were put in there. So look at them. They all survived fine for you kids watching from home. What a great year to get out of. Here we go. 2021, hopefully it's going to get better. How it's going to get better, I don't know. But that's what this series is about. What can we learn from last year that will benefit us now, this week, this month, this brand new year of 2021? If you're like me, you hate to follow directions. How many of you hate to follow directions? Yeah, I don't like being told what to do, but I don't like to be slowed down either. Maybe it's a male thing. I don't know. Maybe some gals don't like to follow directions. But let me give you an example. You go to IKEA and you buy a dresser and it comes in pieces, but it's supposed to look like this. That's a nice dresser. Then you get the directions out and this is what the directions look like. Well, I look at those directions and I think, no, that's going to take me they're too small to read. I don't want to take the time to do that. I don't need directions. Get out of my way. Give me my tool belt. I can do this. And my dresser turns out and looks like this. Yeah, oops. Listen, I don't like following directions. Here's my take on it. Following directions are for people who want to get it right the first time. Maybe I like new chances to do it right. Directions are for people who don't know the joy of reassembling. I don't know how many times I have started over, got done, finished, and said, "Oh, I did that wrong." Or directions are people who are busy people who don't have time to start over. During this COVID time, we lost a dear member of our appliance family at the Plough household. Our over-the-stove microwave died.
After 25 years, it died. So we went and got a new one. I go to put it up, and I got, Darlene, I don't need those directions. I go to put it up, and it doesn't quite fit. But I force it, and I put the bolts in and everything, and it's fine, but it's leaning. And so I said, darn, it's wrong. I got to take it down. Well, I found out that when you put a microwave up on the wall like that, there's a bracket behind there. Well, there was a bracket already up on the wall from the old one. Great. Well, the new one came with a bracket already on, so I was trying to put it up with 2 brackets. Maybe that's common knowledge to you. It wasn't to me. I don't know how many times I started over before I figured out when the directions told me what to do. Listen, all that's fine. If you have ever put together Christmas presents on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day and you don't follow the directions, it's like, oh, girls, we got you a Barbie house. Let Daddy put it together. I go through it. I don't follow the directions. I get done and I think, sorry, gals, there's no roof. This is construction zone Barbie. Forget the playhouse. This is her construction zone. Or maybe you get a grill, a gas grill, fancy gas grill. And I put it all together and I turn to Darlene and say, hey, honey, I know it's a gas grill, but we're going to use briquettes and charcoal lighter because I don't want to reassemble it because it won't work any other way. I don't know about, listen, a gas grill, a microwave, a Barbie playhouse, to redo that, to reassemble, to not follow directions, that's one thing. But when it comes to your life and reassembling or redoing or starting over in things of your life, that's a completely different thing. So we want to take some time in the next few weeks of talking about how to make 2021 better because of what we learned from 2020. How do we ensure that this year won't be like last year? And you're like, wait, it wasn't my fault there was an election. It wasn't my fault there was COVID. It wasn't my fault that Kobe Bryant died. It wasn't my fault that there was a fire in Australia. That, whether it was your fault or not, what can we learn from a difficult time that doesn't go wasted so that next time is better than this time? So how do we benefit? In my experience of working with people, with adults, couples, kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, this is what I've taken from a lot of people. That we learn from our mistakes in areas that matter the least. For example, you play a board game for the first time and you figure out how to play and you're like, okay, now that I know, I won't make that mistake again. Or you're playing sports and maybe you're playing basketball and you get a rebound and you shoot it and it gets blocked. Well, next time you fake and then shoot it, well, you learned your lesson. It doesn't really matter. Or first time you text, you learn how to text, or the first time you send a text to, hey, that was fun last night, and you said it to your grandma. I mean, you learn not to do that again, all right? In things that matter the least, we learn from mistakes like that. But we repeat our mistakes in the areas that matter most. It seems like a lot of us keep doing the same thing over and over and keep coming up with the same bad results, like our finances or relationships or parenting or leadership, that sometimes we keep repeating those things and getting the same bad results. So why? Let me tell you, we're not guaranteed that 2021 is going to be better than 2020 because of 3 things. We usually follow these 3 myths. We believe these things, even though we may, and you may like, okay, yeah, Kyle, I understand what you're saying, but does that really affect me? I think it does. Let me give you these 3 myths. Because listen, life has enough unavoidable pain. There's just natural pain. We know that from this last year. There's pain in our future for this year. But how can we do things to avoid pain, to have less pain, and make better decisions so our results that we want for our lives, ourselves, our families, our friends, turns out better? All right? Next year may end up looking a lot like last year unless we do things different. So here's why we could repeat the same mistakes. 3 myths. The first experience is this. The first myth is this, the experience myth, where we think experience makes me wiser. That I've been through that, I'm smarter, I'm better. It's not true. Experience doesn't make you wiser. Just going through something doesn't make you wiser. Evaluated experience makes you wiser. For those of you who have ever played sport, most of us have heard a coach say, we say practice makes perfect. We know that's not true. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you practice sloppily and don't care and just whatever, that perfect practice makes perfect. Just like experience. Experience doesn't make you wiser. You don't gain anything from just going through something unless you evaluate it and learn from it. That there's something that you've been through, you stop and figure out how you got there, stop and figure out how you got out of there, and stop and figure out how you don't want to go back there again. Here's another myth. The know better myth. Since I know better, I'll do better. Oprah says this a lot. Most people, when we know better, we do better. But that's not been my experience personally, and that's not been my experience with people, is know better doesn't equal do better. Most people that I work with that are struggling, marriage or a problem or an addiction or some kind of thing that keeps them from being who they want to be, most people don't need more information. Most people need a life change and need a choice. And know better doesn't equal the ability to do better. Since you have more information, now you're able to do better. For example, for those of you that are dating, high school, college kids, singles, wherever age you're at, why does your last bad relationship look a lot like your current relationship? The common denominator in all of your decisions is you. So you're in a bad relationship now, you look at your last couple of bad relationships and you're like, man, what's wrong with all these people I keep dating? And the problem is, you picked them. The common denominator is you. Or, since we're on the beginning of a new year and we talk about New Year's resolutions, and you're like, I'm going to go on the goat cheese diet, where all I eat is goat cheese and drink goat cheese juice. And you do that for a while and that doesn't work. And then you're going to go on the all bacon diet or the all grapefruit diet. And so many of us have been on so many diets, we get to the end, we say, these diets don't work. What is wrong with these diets? Well, it's not the diet. At some point, you got to point the finger at you. That the choices we make and the things we do. So just knowing better, hey, I just read this article on this new diet. That doesn't make you lose weight. Knowing better does not equal the ability to do better. Nothing, get this, nothing changes in our lives unless we evaluate the experience that we're in and going through, and we make some personal changes. Talking about what we've been through is easy. Making personal life changes because of what we've been through is much more difficult. So, one more myth. Not just the experience myth, the know better myth, but the time myth. And this one's the most difficult one. That time is against me. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 16 or you could be 56. That we think time is against me. I'm not getting any younger, so I better hurry up and get a new job. The opportunities are coming and going and I'm missing them. People my age have already this, or they've already done that, or all my other friends own a house. All my other friends drive that. All my other friends, and we think, and we panic. And we think that time is against me, that I got to hurry up because I'm running out of time. I'm going to die soon. I'm going to die alone. I'm going to die poor. And we just panic. The truth is, and if you've worked with people at all, especially people in transition, where we're coming out of a difficult year, where there's been a lot of pain and loss, financially or health, or marriages and relationships. It's been very, very difficult. The truth is, when you work with people or you stop, you realize that time is your friend, especially when you're coming out of a difficult time. Because whenever we go through something difficult, we need time to regain our balance. If we learned anything, the year 2020 threw us off balance. Me as a person, me and our family, us as a church and staff of Real Life, it's easy to get out of balance. Time also helps your emotions settle down. They're all over the place. We have an election. We got a new president. We don't, and you look on Facebook and everybody's like, you suck, and you are, I can't say you. Calm down. Take some time and let your emotions settle down. You know that if you're in pain, you become self-absorbed. Like sprain your ankle, when you walk on it, all you can think about is my ankle hurts, my ankle hurts. Time helps us, helps us wait and let the pain subside. It's the same way with emotional pain. Emotional pain causes us to be self-absorbed. And self-absorbed people don't make good decisions. When all you can concentrate is on yourself and just telling your story and trying to convince everybody else that what you've been through is unique. And I don't want to hurt your feelings, but what you've been through is different than other people around you, but you aren't any different than anybody else around you. Lots of people have been through lots of pain. And we all respond and want to respond the same way. And all I'm saying is, if you take some time, let yourself get into balance, your emotions settle down, become less self-absorbed, then you'll make better decisions so that this year will be better than last year because you've benefited and made good changes, made good decisions based on what you've been through. Because once you take enough time, you'll be able to hear things later that you can't hear now. There's too much going on inside your brain and you're not even listening. And you'll be able to hear from people later that you can't hear from now. In the middle of transition, in the middle of crisis, in the middle of, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know how I'm going to redeem this relationship. Time helps to calm that down. So, real quick, you're like, hey, I thought this was a church service. I thought you were a pastor. Yeah, I am. And there's only one verse in today, and we'll open it up wide open for the next few weeks. We'll give you more verses and stuff. And if you're not a church person, you're probably like, yay, not a lot of verses. And if you are a church person, just hold on. There's stuff coming, all right? But if you look at the Bible and the historical record of the Bible, you say, are there any people that we can compare our lives to of what we've been through? Are there any people like that in the Bible? And almost every single person that God seems to use from the beginning of the Bible to the end went through some kind of difficult, painful situation. That they were in round one, they were doing this, they went through a difficult time, and then round two, they came out on the other side of it. Let me give you some example. Some crisis years. People that went through, these are just a sample, and I'm moving quick. There's dozens and dozens of people. For example, Moses goes from murderer to leader. Moses is born into Pharaoh's family in a strange way. He becomes like the prince of Egypt. He realizes he's a Hebrew and all his Hebrew buddies are being treated poorly in the Egyptian kingdom. He says somebody should do something about this. He sees somebody mistreating a Hebrew. He gets into a fight with him. He kills him. He panics and he runs. Leaves. He's got to get out of there. Later, God calls him and says, go back. And he becomes, if you've seen the movie or seen the musical, he becomes the leader that takes all the Jews, all the Hebrews to their new and promised land. He takes them out of the horrible situation in Egypt, and God uses them as the leader of the Jewish people. How about David? David is a fugitive and moves to king. God comes along to David and says, hey, guess what? You're the new king of Israel. The problem was there was already a king of Israel named Saul. So David moves into the palace and serves Saul, and Saul becomes jealous of him, tries to kill him, and David has to run. And David on the run lived a horrible existence. It was very, very difficult. So during a time where he was a fugitive, God worked on him, so when he came back as king, he was ready to go. When round one, he was a fugitive. Difficult time of being gone. Round two, becomes king. Paul in the New Testament, who writes like 2/3 of the New Testament, he was dedicated to religion, dedicated to God. He thought it was his purpose to persecute all these silly Christians who claimed to be followers of this Jesus person. He was a persecutor, put him in jail, gave approval of him being put to death. And then God knocks him off his donkey, gets his attention, and he becomes a follower of Jesus and then plants churches all through the known world to speak about Jesus. He goes from persecutor to planter. Now, what all these three people have in common, I think what we all can experience as well, is that they went through an isolated time of waiting. Where it was like, God, what are you doing? I thought you said it was going to be this way, but I find myself in the middle of this painful, uncertain, difficult time. Moses, it was 40 years between the time he ran to the time he came back to be leader. David, between 8 to 15 years when he was on the run before he was able to take completely over the promised kingdom that God said he would have. And Paul, he went through some 14 years. In fact, he was so doubted by all the followers of Jesus, it took him a long time to get to a place where people would believe that he was really committed to planting churches. All right? Now, these three people that we see in the Bible, people I've worked with, people in my own life, all of people who have been through round one was this, went through a difficult time, came out on the other side. Almost everybody had some benefits in crisis. And here's the thing, I wish it was different, but you've heard me say this a bunch of times. I wish you could learn all the great stuff of life that would make me a better pastor, better friend, better dad, better husband. I wish you could learn those things through pleasant circumstances. But most things in life that make us better are difficult. You can't eat Krispy Kreme donuts a dozen a day to make yourself a better husband. I wish you could. I'd be the best husband in the world. No, most of us go through difficult times, that there's a crisis, that there's pain, and we come out on the other side, and so many times we want to hurry through the pain and hurry through the crisis and just get out of there instead of, and this is really difficult, instead of just stopping and saying, okay, wait, what is there, what benefit, what am I learning? And for a lot of us, when we get to the other side of that current crisis, there's two benefits that we learn. There's a sense of divine destiny, and there's this consistent humility. The sense of divine destiny that says, God is up to something in my life. And even though it hurts, and even though it's painful, God can redeem my situation. God, redeem means to add value. God can look at my past, my pain, my failure, and he can make good out of it. And I know sometimes that sounds like preachy talk and just sermon, churchy stuff, but it's legitimate. That what if it's true that something good can come from the difficult stuff that we've been through? And I don't know what 2020 was like for you individually and personally. We all can tell stories of a pandemic and election and stuff like that. But personally, what is your situation? What personal pain and stuff have you gone through, or are you still going through? When you get to the other side of that, you look back and say, hey, look what God was doing. Look how God worked in my life. Look at the fact that, and some people get to the other side and say, I'm so glad that happened. And sometimes we say, Christians. But there's legitimate people who say, I wouldn't trade it for the world. That pain I've been through, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back and change it. Because what I learned was that God is in charge, and God can take something bad and make something good out of it. He does it all the time. Also, there's a sense of humility that I can stop and give God the credit for what he's doing in my life. It's not all about me. And as that sounds a little scolding, but the other side of that is, it's not all on me. It's so refreshing to know I don't have to control everything. I don't have to control outcomes. That I can have confidence in God to do what he's going to do rather than myself. That doesn't mean I'm going to sit around and be lazy or whatever, but the pressure's off. That I don't have to fix all the bad in my life. That God never wastes the pain. We say that all the time. Whether it's a whole year of pain or just a season of pain or a week of pain, that God can redeem what I thought was wasted. All right, so Paul, who went from being persecutor to planter, sits down and he writes this verse. And a lot of us who are raised in church know it. And if you weren't, this is great information. Because no one more than Paul knew the pain of what he had been through, the shame of his past. So when he says, and we know, we're confident, we're certain that in all things, he's saying that in all circumstances, everything we've been through, a whole year, we know that in all things that God works. That's big. Whatever you're going through, God works. God redeems. God can add value to all things, whatever you're going through. Now listen, it's been my experience of working with people and in my own heart and my own life that God can redeem, that God can work through difficult times if you allow him to. All right? What I found is when I allow God to work through my failures or my past or my mistakes or the pain in my life, then there's value. I learn from it. But when I don't allow him to, those things come back and haunt me. If I don't stop and say, okay, God, yeah, I messed up, or I wish that was different, or that really hurt. If I don't acknowledge those things, if I don't say them out loud, if I don't give those to God, then they'll come back and haunt me. They'll sneak up on me when I'm not ready. God can redeem and God can work for good in all things if you allow him to. And that's what we're going to talk about the next few weeks. God works for the good of those who love him, for the good of those who say, okay, I give up, I surrender. I'm tired of trying to control outcomes. I'm trying to control my the pain and good and bad in life and my friends and my family and my kids. I surrender and I allow you to do it. And then Paul says, for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And that's that destiny, that God has a plan and a purpose, even in the midst of your pain and where you find yourself. So, what do we do now? What are some next steps, some practical stuff? We're going to be at this Hindsight 2020 series for a while. But just off the top, just in an overall introduction to this thing, what are some ways that you can make sure that this year will be better than last year, regardless of what the future holds? First of all, plan for this year to be better. Next year can be better than last year, but not just because you want it to. There's got to be some kind of plan. What is it that you're going to do that will draw you closer to your family? What is it that you're going to do to draw you closer to God? What are things that you're going to, what's your plan? It takes more than, well, I went through a bad experience last year in 2020, so I'm prepared for this new year. Well, experience doesn't make us better. Or I went through that thing, so now I know better. Now, knowing doesn't make us better. What are you going to do? And you can't rush through this thing. I would encourage you to take some time and think through, even if you're panicked, even if you don't know what tomorrow looks like in your finances or relationships or schooling, whatever that looks like, that you would take time, because time's your friend. So what's your plan this year to be better? Not just want to be better. What's the plan look like? And we'll help you with that next week. Second, invite God to redeem your past. And that's a difficult one. Some of us have never talked about that one weekend in college, or that one season when you wish you hadn't, when you regret that time, or that thing at work, or that person. A lot of us haven't even talked about that with anybody. But maybe this would be the time to at least stop and say, okay, God, every time this comes up, I cringe, and inside I just feel guilt, and there's this overwhelming regret, or there's just pain because I didn't do anything to deserve it, and these people did these things to me. And what if you invited God in a difficult way to say, all right, would you come in and take this pain? Would you come in and take all this stuff that kind of just weighs me down? And I'm going to trust that you would redeem it, that you would add value from what I've experienced in my past. That's a great way to start a brand new year. Even though it's painful to think about and talk about, maybe it's the way you become unburdened when you ask God to take and make value from your past. And finally, trust God for a better permanent future. Maybe you're tuning in and you've been coming to Real Life a long time, or you've been a church person all your life. Great. If not, if you're just tuning in or someone convinced you to listen, we're not just talking about today or tomorrow or a week from now. But God has a permanent, better future that he promised. Jesus says to his disciples, hey, I'm going away, and I'm going to prepare a place for y'all, and I'm going to come back and get you. Jesus constantly talked about heaven. I just stood at a graveside a few days ago. And whenever I do that and we put a body in the ground, and it's a believer who faithfully followed Jesus, we put the body in the ground and we dedicate the gravesite right there. But that's just where the casket is. That person's spirit and soul and future is in the presence of Jesus. So I'm asking at the beginning of a brand new year, maybe this is how you start. That you decide to trust God, faith alone in Christ alone. You don't have to believe a series of things. You don't have to act a certain way. You don't have to change this or change. It's just, would you consider to put your faith, your trust, that you would give your life in the direction of your life to God through Jesus, because he has a better permanent future, not just in this life, but in the one to come. What a great way to start a brand new year. Let's pray. God, thanks. Thanks that 2020 is over, and at the same time, we don't know what 2021 looks like, but we want to trust that you are with us, and in the middle of it, and no matter what it brings, that you can bring value from that. God, I ask that this year would be better than last year, mainly because of all the things we're going to learn and the way we're going to benefit from what we've been through. God, thanks for walking with us. Thank you for Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great Sunday, a great week. All you meeting in Real Life at Home groups, God bless you guys. Keep at it. Thanks for what you're doing. If you need something, Billy's online on Facebook if you want to grab his group as well. Thanks for tuning in. See ya. Love ya. Bye.
Thanks again for tuning in today. Don't forget, tonight at 6 o'clock, Youth Night Live will be on the Rendezvous's YouTube page. We'd love for everybody to tune in. It's just a fun time, and we will also be announcing where our next youth missions trip will be. Other than that, we'll see you next week.